very much. Okay, just before I get started, just thought I'd point out that if you really don't want to take notes, all of the slides are available on SlideShare. So if you just go to bit.ly/SEO about the user, you can download everything there. So unless you're really super keen and you want to take notes, then there's really no need to. So when I was first asked to give this talk on SEO, I thought, how do I give a presentation on SEO that people haven't seen a million times and probably haven't seen a couple of times today? So I thought I'd try and make it a little bit more interesting for you guys, like it is the last one of the day after all, and kind of tell it in a bit more of a story format. So I thought, like any good story, I need a leading man to kind of help me through the story. So I thought, who would be the best person, the best type of person to represent SEO? So I racked my brains about it for a few weeks, and the best person I came up with was this guy. So why this guy? Why is he the best person to represent SEO and to be my leading man in this story, when he's not really the kind of person that most of us would like to work with? So there's probably a few reasons why this guy is the best person to represent SEO. So to explain that, I just thought I'd run through a few things really that our clients kind of automatically assume about SEO when I go and meet them. So the first thing is, lots of clients and potential new clients think that SEO is really difficult. They also think that it's very technical, and a lot of our clients, or new clients, think that SEO is just for geeks. So I guess that means I'm kind of stuck with this guy for the leading man role in my story. But I really wanted to think about why clients think these things. Like, why do they think that SEO is technical and it's so difficult and it's just for geeks? So there's a few reasons that explain why. So this is the first reason. It comes from Google themselves. So back when I started doing SEO back in the early 2000s, the Google algorithm was very, very simple. So it's basically just a case of putting a few keywords on the page, filling out the old meta keywords tag, and the results were generally pretty good. Obviously these days, things are much more complicated. So clients see things like this when Google make these kind of announcements, and they think, Jesus, there's no way that we can keep up with all these improvements and changes to the algorithm. So we really need that kind of geeky guy to help us through the minefield of SEO and to keep us up to date and make sure that we don't fall foul of any of these changes. Second reason is SEO horror stories. So there's lots of mainstream media outlets now that are starting to write more and more stories about SEO, like The Guardian in the UK and the Wall Street Journal in the States, kind of mainstream outlets. But the main things that they pick up on, unfortunately, are these SEO horror stories. So there's been a load of cases recently in the last few years about Google giving penalties and even banning websites from the Google Organic Index. There was a famous case probably about 18 months, 2 years ago now I think it was, with Interflora in the UK. So they were caught buying links into their website to artificially improve their organic rankings. So that's completely against the Google guidelines. So as a result of that, they were completely banned from Google, completely. So when I say banned, I mean like even if you went to Google in the UK and typed in their brand name, Interflora, they wouldn't show up at all. So that lasted for a few months for them. They got back pretty quickly in relative terms, but you can imagine if you run an e-commerce website and you start getting zero organic traffic overnight, then that could potentially be the end of your business. So there were plenty of businesses which did go bankrupt during the last couple of years when Google rolled out the last two big algorithm changes. So again, clients see these kind of things and think, yeah, we need that geeky guy to make sure this doesn't happen to our website. So the next reason, and this is one that kind of annoys me about some SEO companies, is the way that they communicate with their clients. So they send over SEO proposals and SEO reports that look a little bit like this. So these hugely complicated technical documents. And again, clients look at these things and there's no way that they can understand everything in these documents, but they're just left with that impression that SEO is so difficult and so technical, and again we need that geeky guy on board to help us talk us through all these complicated documents. Okay, next one. Another thing that kind of annoys me about SEO, spam. So I guess if any of you have ever run or managed a website, you will have at some point received an email from people promising you to get your website to #1 for some kind of keyword that nobody's ever even searching for. So I think this is another case really of some people in the SEO industry just really not giving a good impression of the SEO as a whole. So they just kind of make promises to clients they can never really hope to keep. So again, clients just left with this impression that SEO has got this kind of black magic aura around it, and it's just very, very difficult and technical. So the last reason I'll give you is when clients hear things like this. It's kind of nonsense, right? And this was something that when I was working in the UK, an old colleague of mine actually said during a meeting to one of our old clients. And obviously, the client didn't understand a word of what he says, but he's just left with that impression that SEO is so difficult and technical. And again, we really need to be a kind of geeky type of person to be able to understand SEO. So this is my point really today, that this guy's kind of had his chance. All he's been doing is just been trying to game the system over the last few years, and Google's really getting wise to that now. So it's really started clamping down on these kind of dodgy SEO practices. So all this guy's been doing is building these links to websites just to artificially inflate their organic rankings. He's got us penalties as a result of all that kind of activity. Sent us these really overly complicated reports and proposals, and just talked a lot of nonsense during meetings really. So of course it's true that SEO is time consuming, and it does take a while to start driving really good quality organic traffic to your site, but it's really not as difficult and complicated as the person like this would have you believe. So why is it that I chose this guy as my leading man? Why didn't I choose somebody more normal and much better looking, I thought. So how about I choose someone that looks a bit like that? So this is what I want to show you really, that it's not that difficult. It's not as difficult as people like the other guy would have you believe, and it's not that technical, and you definitely don't need to be a geek to be able to do your own SEO. So the whole point of this talk is really that everything we should be doing in SEO should be focused around the user. It shouldn't be focused on all those technical aspects of it. So I'll try not to make it sound too much like an advert, but everything that we do at iProspect in the SEO department is focused entirely around the user. So there's 3 channels that we use to do that, and those 3 things are all designed, of course, to improve your SEO, but most importantly, they're designed to make your users happier people and your websites better places to be. So there's 3 things, and I promise this will be the last picture of me on these slides, but there's 3 things that we do that I'll talk about in a bit more detail. So the first thing is content, and how you can write great content that users are going to engage with. Second thing is links, so it's such a huge part of SEO. And what you can do to build links that, yes, they'll improve your organic rankings, but more importantly, they'll drive good levels of traffic to your website. And finally, sharing. So on social media, how do you get people to share your content? So it's probably no surprise that the first thing I wanted to talk about was content on your website. So it's probably the single biggest thing that you can do to drive traffic to your site, to build a brand and to improve your sales and increase the number of leads that you get through your website. So I want to talk briefly about Wikipedia, just because of the huge number of search terms that it ranks for. So there was a study carried out in 2012 where researchers took a list of 1,000 random keywords and studied the organic search result pages for those 1,000 keywords. And they found that Wikipedia ranks on page 1, that's the top 10 positions of Google, for 99% of those keywords, so a huge, huge percentage of those keywords. So the way that Wikipedia does this is because it's become a resource for so many different topics. So people love those kind of resources. They love going there and reading about the resources, but they also love linking to those resources. So maybe if they're writing a blog post of their own, they'll use Wikipedia as a link, as almost like a backup resource. So of course those links drive more traffic to Wikipedia and they increase the rankings even further. So it's kind of like a cycle, if you like. So obviously Wikipedia is a very special case. Like they add, I think the last time I looked, I think they added 300 million new words of content to their website in a month. So obviously not every website can do that. Wikipedia is probably the only website that can do that. But there's so much stuff you can be doing on virtually any website to improve the content. So I guess we've probably all been there when you needed to write content for either a blog post or a website of some kind, but you didn't really know what to write, so you didn't really know what topics to come up with. But it's actually pretty easy really to come up with content that you know your users are really going to like. So there's a couple of ways to do that. The first couple of ways are talking about Google Analytics. So this is a really good report called the Site Content Report. So you just go to some of the behaviour and look at site content and all pages. So this will show you the content that people have been looking at on your website. So it's a good idea just to go back over the last year or so and look at what content's been working for you on your website. So you can look at this report, you can see what's driving traffic, what's driving sales, what's driving inquiries. If you've got your goals set up, you can see which pages are driving goals as well. So it's a really good way to see what your users are already interested in. So again, On our blog, we have a blog at iProspect where we write 2 pieces of content every week. So we know, for example, on the iProspect blog that if we write something on display advertising, those posts are much more successful. They get more traffic and more inquiries than, say, the posts on PPC or SEO that we write. So again, looking at that kind of data allows us to come up with more of an accurate content plan. So we know that we're going to be driving traffic to the website. So again, you can go on analytics, look at your website, see what content's worked for you in the past, and generate more of it, make your users happier people. So the next Google Analytics report is called the Landing Pages Report. So this is really good because it will show you exactly which pages and which posts that you've written on your blogs are actually driving organic traffic to your website. So especially now that Google doesn't show us the organic keywords that people type in to find our website, these landing pages reports are even more important. So we wrote a post a few months ago now, and it was on the Irish Digital Consumer Report. So this was a report somewhere we found elsewhere. We went and wrote a blog post on it, and it was so successful at driving organic traffic to our website. So another good idea here is something like this report. This was written entirely about 2013. So a good idea here is to go and look at your content, see what drove lots of traffic to your site, but might now be a little bit out of date. So for this example, we know that it's going to drive lots of organic traffic to the site, so there's nothing stopping us going in here and updating this for 2014. So we can even spend a bit of money on this because we know it's going to drive a good amount of traffic to the site because we've got the data to prove it. Something else that we use all the time with our clients is a tool called Follower Wonk. Has anybody used this much before? Yeah, 1 or 2? Okay. So Follower Wonk is a Twitter analytics tool. So what it allows you to do is look at your followers on Twitter or your competitors' followers on Twitter, and you can see what they're interested in. So it's a really useful tool. So it's really simple to use. You can just go in, put the name of the Twitter handle that you're interested in, and it'll show you what those people are interested in. So the example I used here is a website called Net-a-Porter in the UK, which is a fashion website. So the reason I use them is because they've got nearly 500,000 Twitter followers, so they've got a load of data that you can use, and because it's so big, then it's fairly accurate. So, because Net-a-Porter is a fashion website, of course, their followers are going to be interested in fashion, yeah, of course. But this was quite interesting. They're also really interested in music. So, a couple of ideas that Net-a-Porter could use, just to really engage with their users, would be to try and tie fashion and music together. So they could do a couple of blog posts on the top 10 best dressed musicians or something, or they could run a poll on their website and ask their users who they thought were the best dressed musicians. So they know from this data that's going to be something their users are really interested in. So by this point, if you used Google Analytics and Follower Wonk a little bit, you should have a pretty good idea about what your users are interested in and what kind of content they like. So next up, this tool that we use to come up with really good content ideas and more content ideas, and lots of them, is a spreadsheet. So it's just a Google Docs spreadsheet. It was created by a company over in the UK. It's completely free. Again, if you download the slides, you can just go to that URL there and make your own copy of it. So what this tool does is you put in the keywords here. So in this example, I've just put in music and fashion, and it'll spit out brand new articles, so it's kind of almost in real time. It'll show you articles from like Google News, from Twitter, from Reddit, from Bing News, from all over the place. Articles that people have written on similar topics. So again, you can see what other people are writing about and get lots of more content ideas for your work. So of course, coming up with lots of content ideas is one thing, but being able to write that content and generate that content and put it on your website on a regular basis is another. So it's really important, obviously, to have fresh content on your site a lot. So Google loves sites with fresh content, and also it keeps your users coming back for more. So the way that we do it in iProspect on our blog is a Google Calendar. So it's coming up with a content calendar, putting information in there and really sticking to it. So in iProspect we've got, I think, 12 or 13 people in the team. Every person in that team writes their own blog posts every 6 to 8 weeks. So about every few months I go in here and update it, just put the name of the person, the topic that they're going to be writing on, and everybody in the team has access to that content calendar. So they can go in, they can see when their blog is due, and I look after the blog, so it gives me a good reason to shout at people if they don't write the content on time. Okay, next up, link building. So I couldn't really do a talk on SEO without talking about link building. So it's such a huge part of SEO. I know that people saying, yeah, link building's maybe dying because of the way that Google are penalising people for it these days. But I can't see it going anywhere anytime soon at all. One thing that really annoys me about SEO and the SEO industry is that there's so many companies that are just doing link building wrong. Like, we see so many people who just still use old-fashioned web directories to build links. So eventually these links just end up on like page 86 of some crappy little web directory, and no one's ever going to see those links, let alone click it. So there's just no value for the user. So what I really like about this quote is, this is a guy called Eric Ward. He's been building links since before Google even existed. So he's not been doing it to improve his organic rankings. All he's doing is building links to drive traffic to his website. So he uses it purely as a traffic source. So this guy gets more traffic to his website from these links than from anything else. So that's what link building should be about. We shouldn't be building links just to improve our organic rankings. We should be building links first to drive traffic to our website. So a tool that we use all the time when we are doing link building for our clients is called Open Site Explorer. So it's a pretty well-known tool. This is a paid tool, but there's a free trial. So if you go to opensiteexplorer.org, you can take a free trial. I think it's for 28 days or 30 days, something like that. So you can go there and give it a go if you're interested. So again, it's very, very simple to use. You just put in the name of the website that you're interested in here. It's a bit unclear on the screen, but I've looked at the Simply Zesty website. Just for this example, so you just put in the name of the website you're interested in, and this will show you all of the external websites that link to the Simply Zesty website. So it's a really good idea to look at either your website or your competitor's website, so you can see, especially for your competitors, you can see where they're getting their links from and maybe backward engineer that and see what activity they're doing to drive links to their website. So then you can go and look to replicate them. So another kind of link building tactic that we use quite a lot in iProspect is something that we call broken link building. So it's a little bit complicated, so I'll try and explain in as much detail as I can, but the idea is that you'll get links and it'll help your users out, and you'll drive really good traffic through those links, and obviously that'll help improve your Google rankings. So the idea is that you analyse your competitors' websites. You find broken pages on your competitors' websites that have links from external websites pointing to those pages, and you try to recreate that content that's broken and steal those links away from your competitors. So just talking a bit more detail about how you can do that. So we go back into Open Site Explorer. There's a report here called the Top Pages Report. So what the Top Pages Report does is shows you all of the pages on your competitor's website which has other websites linking to them. So what you want to find here is a broken page on your competitor's website which has those links pointing into them. So there's one here that has 11 external websites linking into this page, which is a broken page. So it's a pretty bad user experience for those 11 websites. So you can imagine there'll be somebody on one of those 11 websites kind of clicking around, they see a link to Simply Zesty, they want to see that content, they click the link and end up on a broken page on the Simply Zesty site. So it's a pretty poor user experience. So what we want to do is next is find out what that content was on the Simply Zesty site before it got deleted. So to do that, we use another tool to find out what the old content was. So this tool, I guess probably most of you are familiar with this, I guess. This is called the Wayback Machine. So what this does is pretty similar to Google in that it's continuously crawling the web, but it archives all of the pages that it gets. So you can go and look at old pages which have been deleted years and years ago. So you can go to the Wayback Machine and look at what Apple's website looked like in like 1996 or whatever. It's quite interesting. So again, really simple to use. You just stick the URL in here of that broken page on the Simply Zesty site that you want to look at, and it will show you what it's like. So this particular example I think is from March 2010. So it will show you all of that content which has been deleted probably 2-3 years ago, and you can recreate that content on your website. So what you want to do is take this content, obviously don't just steal it, but take the idea of the content recreate it, something similar, not exactly the same, but something similar, put it on your website, then you can get in touch with those 11 websites which are linking to Simply Zesty. Say, hi, I was looking around your website, noticed you had a couple of broken links on there. We have something very similar on our website in terms of content. Do you want to change that link and fix it and link to us instead? So what's really good about that is, yeah, you're stealing links away from competitors, which I guess is kind of good, but you're really helping your users out. So you're giving them content that they really want to see, that they can't find anywhere else. So what's good about that in terms of Google and the way that they're penalising links now is, you will never ever get penalised for this kind of activity, because you're just giving people exactly what they want, and you're making the internet a better place, which is what Google say they want to do. Okay, so the final area I want to talk about is social sharing. So this is a quote I really like, so let's read this quote out. It says, social media is like teen sex, everyone wants to do it, no one actually knows how. So I really like this quote because it kind of sums up what a lot of our clients think about social media. So they all know they should be doing something on it, but sometimes they're kind of unsure about how to get started or what they should be doing on it and how they should be using social media to push their content out. So I guess by now, if you've been using Google Analytics and FollowerWonk and Open Site Explorer, you have a pretty good idea about who your users are, what kind of content they're interested in. So you should be able to write really great content that your users are engaged with. So the next step is just making it as easy as possible for them to share that content with their friends. So a website that I think does social sharing really, really well is Dublin. Are you guys familiar with this site? It's pretty big news now, right? Yeah. So it's a food and restaurant review site. So they go there to all these different restaurants throughout Dublin and review them, basically. What I really like about their business model, though, is that they don't rely on Google for their traffic. They rely on social media for the traffic because they do such a good job of pushing the content out through social media. So I often see websites when we're doing research with social media buttons all over the page. Like they're really kind of ramming social media down your throat, like, you know, share our content, share our content. They have social media buttons above the content, below the content, all the way down the side of the content. Buttons that follow you around when you scroll down the page and all that stuff, and then there's like 87 different social networks and you've never even heard of half of them, and you just end up getting confused and you're like, I'm not going to share this content. And especially when they put the content, when they put the social media buttons above the content, why am I going to share that content? I haven't even read it yet. But that's just a little rant. What I really like about the way that Loving Dublin do it is they've got a really well designed page, yeah, it's very easy to read the stuff and they use lots of really nice images. But just at the bottom of every article, they've just got these 4 really simple social media buttons. They've got a tweet button, Google Plus button, Facebook button, and a Pinterest button. That's it. And the number of shares they get is incredible. So just by using these really simple tactics, 60% of that traffic comes from social media, which is an incredible number. It's so high. And it's very, very simple. So they've built this really great brand through with very little money. And everybody, all of their fans just does the work for them. So they don't need to put loads of effort into what they do through SEO or anything. They just get all the users to share everything through social media. So a few takeaways. So I thought I'd finish with a few takeaways that hopefully everyone can use to improve their users' experience on the website. So first up, create great content. So I know people say it time and time again, create great content, create great content. But it's not as difficult as you think it is, really. All you need to do is use Google Analytics, find out what's popular and what your users are already engaging with. Use FollowerWonk, find out what their interests are, what your followers' interests are, and give them content that they want. That way you kind of know, before you even write the content, that it's going to be popular, it's going to be successful, and it's going to interest the users. Secondly, build links to people, not Google. So if you have an SEO company and they're still saying, yeah, we're going to build links through directories, probably time to find a new SEO company. And that's just me saying that. But yeah, you're probably looking at a penalty. If somebody's just building links through directories, Google looks at that as really bad practice these days. So really, really look carefully. So use Google Analytics to see which links people are actually using to find your website. Use Open Site Explorer, see what your competitors are doing, what tactics are they doing to drive links to their website. And most importantly, only get links that you know people are going to click on. Don't just build a link for the sake of having a link so you can improve your Google rankings. the way that we look at it in iProspect is don't worry about your rankings initially. If you know that link is going to drive traffic, that's brilliant. Your rankings will follow afterwards. So finally, make it easy for people to share your content. So don't give them a million different social media buttons to click on. Just make your content really useful, make it shareable, and make it easy for them to share it. So doing all three of these things, yeah, it will improve your SEO, but more importantly, it'll make your users happy, and that'll make your client happy, that'll make your boss happy, and that's what everyone wants, really. So at this point, I'd love to be able to give you some kind of secret recipe and say, okay, you need to build 3 pieces of new content every week, or you need to build 56 links to your website every month, and that'll do the job for you exactly as you want it to. But it's not really that simple. Every website's different, every industry is different, so the best bit of advice I can give you really is to look at what resources you have available, build a content calendar according to those resources, and make sure that you really stick to that content calendar. And then you can just make it shareable to people, and that's the best you can do. So I guess my last piece of advice for you would be, if you see this guy, avoid him like the plague, because he's really not a good advert for SEO, and he'd be a terrible leading man for my story. So if you have any questions,